video for Visual Studio Community 2015. During this video, I'm going to be running through the basic instructions on some of the features of Visual Studio. Also, we're going to do a little coding. We're going to code pretty much the programmer's hello, which is hello world. It's like the first app that every programmer ever codes. And I'm also going to give a little bit of information about Visual Studio at the end of the video. So, by all means, let's get started. Okay, so what you see right here is basically the intro screen to whenever you start up Visual Studio. In this middle start page, you're going to have new project, open project, and open from source control. And then you're going to have recent projects that you've done. New project is basically you're just going to have a new project, like you're starting a brand new project. Open project means that you would open a project that you've already started. Open from source control is a little bit different. That would mean that you're opening a project from a version control like GitHub or Microsoft Azure or Team Foundation server, something along the lines of that. But for the demonstrations of this video, we're going to stick to a new project. This top right here, this is the toolbars. You have file, which has like your new open, everything like that. Edit, view, debug, team, tools, test, resharper, analyze, window, and help. Some of these features in these toolbars are a little bit more advanced than what we actually need to cover. And I mean, you could honestly make a video for this that would last like 4 or 5 hours. That's just how extensive Visual Studio is and how much power the IDE has. So we're going to start with a new project. Wait for it to load up. Whenever you start a new project, you always start a new project off templates. So we're going to make a C# program, and we're just going to do a blank app, or not a blank app, excuse me. We're going to do a console application. Console application is basically, it's going to go through the console. It's not going to have like any type of special effects or anything like that. Like as you can see here on the left, all the templates, this is just like all the different things that you can make with Visual Studio. Like it's that extensive. And it supports C#, JavaScript, Python, Visual Basic, Visual F#, C#, business intelligence, which is kind of like when you're doing database work, and SQL Server. Like you can make games with it. Visual Studio works really well with the game engine Unity. I've made a few games off Unity myself. It's pretty simple to make, pretty easy. But like I said, we're just going to do a C# application and we're going to do a console application. So right here in name, this is where you actually put the name of your application you want to make. We're going to make Hello World. So we're just going to name it Hello World. The location is where the project is going to be at. And the solution name is basically like what the solution name is going to be. It basically just copies like whatever you name the project. There's no real reason to change the name of that. Over here you have create directory for solution. That should always be checked. And create new Git repository. You should only create this if you're going to put it in a version control like GitHub or Team Foundation server or something along those lines. If you're not doing a big project with other people, there's really no need to check it. And then once we name our project, we'll hit OK. All right, it appears right here you can't have two projects that are named the same thing. So since there's already a project that says Hello World, we'll just add like a 2 to it. And then we'll hit OK and wait for the project to load. It's Create Visual Studio's creating a project right now. Takes a little bit of time. We'll come back once it's completed. Okay, now we're back and the project's completed. In this window right here, this is basically going to be where you actually write your code in. Like this is where all your instructions for your application go. To the right in the Solution Explorer, this is basically a tree layout of everything you're trying to do, like your entire project. It has like the properties, which your properties are going to be mostly self-built unless you're using like a some type of user interface like buttons and everything like that. That would go over there, but that's a little bit more advanced than what we need. And then you have your references. Your references are going to be all the system attributes that you're going to be using for the C# language. There's really, at the beginner level, there's really no need to touch that. And then you have like your just basic program. So right here, like in order to write our application, which is Hello World, you want to put your code between the two brackets, and then you would essentially just write it out. It's going to be system dot. Now see, when you press dot, this is a very powerful feature of Visual Studio that's called IntelliSense. It basically tries to find commands for you, and as we type, you'll see that it'll like break down the list. The reason for this is basically so programmers can be more productive and more efficient. And also, if you're trying to do something new, you can look through and see what each one does. So we'll do system dot console. And you see, like, when we highlight something, it tells us, like, what that basic command does. So as you can see right here, the class system console represents the standard input, output, and error streams for console applications. So we'll hit that. And then we want to do another dot. And we want to put right line. And then in here, after we write right line, you're going to put a semicolon. And once you put a semicolon, it adds another one. And inside these semicolons is where you actually put your message. So we'll put hello world. And once we write the line to our application, this is an extremely simple application. But once you write it, you want to go here to start. Once you hit start, it's going to run the application for you. So as you can see, we hit start. Then we wait for the output. It has to, once you hit start, it compiles the code to binary for the computer and then runs the application for you. And as you can see here, it popped up and then it went away. And the reason why it did that, is because there was the command was done. So it basically just ran that command and then it was done. But we're going to do something to make it stand up a little bit longer so I can show you what it looks like when you're running the application. Okay, a way to keep the application from immediate closing is to write console dot read line and then semicolon. And now instead of the console window flashing open and then closing, it'll wait for us to basically hit the enter key or something like that before it closes. This way we can actually check the output of our program. So we'll hit start again. And see, now it's staying up there. And you see also when you're actually running your application, you go to a different screen. This is the debug screen. With this screen, it basically tells you how much CPU you're using, how much memory you're using. You can also check to see what variables, make sure like you have no type of errors in your program. And I mean, there's many things that you do in the debug screen when you're actually running a program to this is all to make sure that your program is actually running efficiently. So now we'll hit the enter key and go back. All right, so now we're back at our regular screen, and this basically is how you use Visual Studio, a real basic version of how to use Visual Studio. I chose to do my instruction on Visual Studio because this is basically, as one of my professors calls it, the programmer's playground. Like your IDE, which is called the Integrated Development Environment, this is basically like the hammer to a carpenter. Like everything you need or everything you do as far as like programming is going to be in some type of IDE. It may not necessarily be Visual Studio because there are some languages that Visual Studio doesn't allow you to use, like Java, Ruby on Rails is another one, and there's a few other ones out there. So it may not necessarily be on Visual Studio, but every IDE is going to be different, but they're all going to work internally the same. So for our projects in our technical writing class, we were supposed to like cover an object that was important to us in our career field and what we're majoring in. And it really doesn't get much more important for a computer programmer or a software engineer than the IDE. This is basically where everything happens. And this is basically my project. Thank you.